All right, so in this video today, we are going to be talking about how to be less angry at your spouse. Now, if you've clicked, that's because there's some part of you that recognizes that the anger you are feeling does not serve you. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't represent the person that you want to be. And you are looking for ways to reduce the intensity and the frequency with which you find yourself angry at your spouse. Welcome home. You are in the right place. It's so interesting. I was having a coaching call with a client of mine, and one of the things that I allow my private clients to do is to record their sessions with me. And so she had recorded her session, she had watched it back, and found herself really struggling with seeing visibly how angry she was, how much resentment she was holding on to when it came to discussing her spouse. If you are in a similar space, I want to first just give you a hug. And the reason is because whenever we are stewing in a lot of anger and a lot of resentment, there is deep hurt, deep wounding, deep pain underneath it. And so many times we need to allow ourselves to process what we're so angry about. And we really need to understand that anger, I heard this quote years ago, it never left me. Anger is sad's bodyguard. So when you find yourself feeling really angry, the thing that you always want to remember is there's deep pain underneath this anger. And that's what we want to address. That's what you want to work on healing and understanding and being compassionate about so that the anger can stop trying to protect you from the pain that you are already feeling. When you think about anger as an emotion, it is a distancing emotion. When you are angry, you are either distancing yourself from the other person or you are creating such a contentious experience that they then want to distance themselves from you. And in your marriage, that is the last thing that you want. Many of the times, the reason that you're so angry or the reason that you're so hurt is that you are not experiencing the level of connection, the level of appreciation or validation, support, or encouragement that you want. And it feels like anger is the solution. It feels like holding that grudge, letting your partner know and criticizing them for what they're not doing and how they're not showing up the way that they need to is the answer to actually getting the appreciation, the connection, and the validation that you want. But it's the opposite. So my client came to me in our next session really, feeling like, I don't want to be so angry. That version that I saw on that video was not me. That's not who I want to be. And I want to address this anger that I am feeling. And so I want to share with you the process that I offered her because when you think about what it would be like to be less angry, it opens you up for so many things that are better. Again, remember, you are only holding on to your anger because it feels like the solution to solve the current problems, but it's not. It's the thing that's actually keeping you stuck and magnifying itself so that there's more distance, more resentment, and more conflict in your marriage. So, the first thing you want to ask yourself is, what's in it for me to let go of the anger, right? You've got to get both sides of yourself on board because there's a part of you that actually wants to hold on to the anger. So you have to ask yourself, what would it be like if I was less angry? What would I be feeling instead? And a lot of times, what I find is that people, when they release their anger and really address the hurt and begin to heal the hurt, they experience peace. So you want to think about the fact of like, would I rather hold on to this anger, or is really what I'm after a sense of peace, a feeling that I don't need to be so intensely activated every time I interact with my spouse. So that's one thing, right? The peace that comes from not being angry all the time. The other thing that I think is really important is that when you are less angry, you can have better and more productive conversations. And I am all for both helping you manage things internally and also having the conversations with your partner that actually change the circumstances and the situations in your marriage. So, as we dive into how to help you be less angry, I want you to also keep your eye on two prizes. One is how you're going to feel, but then the second one is the opportunity to have conversations in a more productive way that your spouse can actually hear and receive. And then that opens up the possibility for actual change so that you get what you want. When I'm working with my couples and when I'm working with individual women, the goal is always a win-win situation. So you want to be looking at this as I'm going to win because I'm going to feel better, but then I'm also creating a win for my marriage because when I'm calmer and more grounded, then the conversations go better. All right. So you have to first decide that you want to be less angry, see the benefits of that, and then let that be the motivation. Let that be the driver for you. Now, let's put your partner and your spouse on the table. The first thing that you want to do is you want to understand why they are showing up the way that they are showing up, why they are doing what they are doing. A lot of times, what ends up happening is we interpret our partner's behavior in a way where we are personally offended. We are thinking they are intentionally being the way that they're being, or that they are disregarding our feelings and our needs. And so they're showing up being very selfish, very insensitive, very inconsiderate. But what I know as a coach from talking to and coaching so many individuals is that many times the motivators for the way that we behave, the way that we communicate, the way that we react and respond is all about what's going on inside of us. And the way that we interact with our partners is largely a function of the way we were conditioned and taught to interact as children. So, the first thing you want to do is you want to begin to connect the dots and really understand, why is my spouse always shutting down? Or why are they always blowing things out of proportion and getting upset? And I put that in air quotes because part of the problem is we judge their reaction. We judge it, we put labels on it, and labels are also distance creators. So instead of labeling their behavior, instead of saying they're wrong and how they're handling this is completely the wrong way, you want to understand why that is the way they are choosing to respond, why that is the way they feel that they have to respond. So, a lot of times we are just unconsciously repeating the patterns that were modeled to us. So, if as a child, your partner, when they were upset about something or when they had a need or when they had a question, they were often dismissed by their parents, they learned to operate that way. They learned that when a concern is presented to them, it is not to be addressed, it is to be dismissed, it is to be ignored, you are to shut down. And so, whether they want to do that or not, it is what has been conditioned into them. Or maybe they grew up in a home where the only way to be heard was to get angry, was to lash out, was to really make their presence known so that people had to pay attention. So you want to look at, what do I know about my partner's upbringing? What do I know about how conflict was handled? How do I know about how their parents dealt with emotions or dealt with difficult conversations? And how might the way that things were handled in their home conditioned them to also now be unconsciously and maybe even unintentionally responding that same way in our marriage right now? And then you want to have understanding for that. It doesn't excuse unhealthy behavior, but it does help you see that maybe this isn't intentional. Maybe they are unaware. Maybe they're just carrying out the scripts that they were taught and they don't even know how to do things differently. Okay. So that's the first thing. And then when you're able to do that, the next step is to depersonalize what's happening. Meaning, even the words that they say, the way that they say them, the way that they react to you is not actually personal to you. It is their coping mechanism where if they are feeling emotionally overwhelmed, that they're responding a particular way. And that has nothing to do with you. It doesn't mean that what you're asking for is not reasonable. It doesn't mean that you are in the wrong. It doesn't mean anything about you. It's just the way that their brain is firing, the things that they are thinking, the stories that they've told themselves, they are reacting to that. So you want to be able to create some distance and to recognize a lot of times people's responses are not about you. They're about them. And so when you can create that distance and when you have that understanding, then you're able to focus on you, right? So if their reaction isn't about you, then you get to go inside and think about, well, what's so upsetting about this for me? What is the need that I have that isn't been understood? What is the desire that I have that I feel like is being ignored? And you want to look for how you are feeling in light of the circumstance and in light of the situation. You want to name that emotion. I feel upset. I feel lonely. I feel neglected. I feel ignored. I feel unseen. I feel deprioritized. And when you can tune into that more tender, softer emotion that, again, that anger is trying to protect, then you open your heart to being able to connect with your spouse. So you want to look at, what am I really feeling here? And what am I really needing? And then you want to take some initial responsibility for soothing that need, for soothing that pain, for soothing that wound, whatever is not feeling well with you. You want to ask yourself, how can I best take care of myself when I am feeling this way? So if you're feeling lonely, how can you best take care of yourself when you are feeling lonely? Who are the people that you can reach out to? What are the connections you can make outside of your marriage in a very healthy way that fuel you, that fill you up so that you are not depleted and in this starvation mode from the attention and the validation that maybe in this moment your partner hasn't been able to give you? And so once you have done all of that, you've looked and you've connected the dots to their upbringing and why they respond the way that they do. You've depersonalized their behavior and recognized that it's not always about you. You've identified what is that tender emotion, and you've been able to meet that need in a very healthy way to some degree. Now you are in the perfect position to have a conversation with your spouse. You will be much more grounded. You will be much more open and not in need to convince and control and to drag them and to beat it over their head so that they finally understand. You will be able to have a much higher level of conversation. You'll be able to have a much more mature level of conversation. And so you may be also asking, okay, Dr. Siobhan, let's say I do all of that and I go to my partner. I am emotionally regulated. I am grounded. I am following the steps, and they still react poorly. They still dismiss. They still defend. They still come in and criticize and blame me for all the things. Then what do I do? That is the moment for you to step back. Right? That is the moment for you to recognize, okay, I showed up as my best to this conversation, and my partner was unable to meet me in that moment at their best. And you want to have grace and you want to have compassion for that. And you don't want to excuse it, right? You don't want to just throw your hands up and say, well, I guess that's just how they're always going to be and I don't deserve any more. No. We're not doing that here on this channel. That's not what this is about. But you do want to disengage, right? You want to take a step back and then go and help yourself, right? Because it may have triggered a different emotion. Now you feel rejected, maybe, or now you feel dismissed. And so the process continues with, okay, I was feeling lonely before, I brought it to them, they weren't able to handle it. Now I'm feeling really rejected, right? You want to go back in, self soothe, and then really evaluate where your relationship stands. Because sometimes that is the answer. I have done so many master classes, so many calls, and have had so many women and clients come and say, I've tried all of that. I've tried everything you've said. I've done this, I've done that. They're not budging. Sometimes you have to accept that people are where they are, and then the choice for what to do next is yours and yours alone. And I know sometimes we wish, like, no, I do all the right things and then I get the exact perfect response. It doesn't always work that way. And I always tell my clients, and I want to tell you as well, you have to be prepared for that. I don't want you caught off guard that as you're learning these skills and as you're applying it, and maybe as your partner is learning these skills and they're applying it, it may not always go perfectly. And so that is where you still want to be able to take care of yourself. You still want to collect that information and move yourself forward, whether that's trying again with another conversation or finding some other way to soothe yourself and take care of yourself in a really challenging circumstance, season, or moment. I want you to know that I'm here for you, though. I am here for you either way. And my podcast is such an amazing resource for all of the steps of this process, whether it's how to think better thoughts about your partner, how to self-soothe, how to address a sensitive topic or a hot button issue together as a couple. There are so many episodes on my podcast, Love Marriage Again, that dive even more deeply into these topics and provide you with more concrete steps to take care of yourself, to have the best possible communication, and to hopefully move your marriage forward in the best direction possible. I am going to link a couple of those episodes in below this video. I would love to meet you there as well. And I also want to let you know that I work with clients directly. So if you've watched this video, if what I've said has really resonated with you, if you're looking for help and would really like some additional support, I want to invite you to schedule a complimentary call with me. I will link that link as well in the notes, and you can book a complimentary session. It's a consultation where if you really are looking for help and want to learn exactly how my process, how my coaching methodology could support you in creating a better experience for yourself, I would love to have that conversation with you. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. Let me know what's most helpful. I would love to engage with you in the comments and know how this is helping you.